Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel with the latest update from British politics. The Labour cabinet and this new socialist prime minister are in turmoil again. Another day and another scandal in regards to the Labour Party's top donor, Lord Wahid Alli, who has been in the news for the past few weeks because he's been donating a lot of money and buying underwear for Keir Starmer's wife and giving his penthouse to the Prime Minister during the lockdown, breaking the rules and not actually declaring all those financial interests. But this one is actually juicy because it's escalating. There's been more digging and more investigation, especially thanks to Guido and everybody else who found out more information about Wahid Alli, who is a member of the House of Lords, so he's technically a politician in this country. This is about election interference, ladies and gentlemen. This is about the Labour Party, the last time as well when they were in government with Tony Blair as Prime Minister, and he decided to invade Iraq. Remember that? You know, the good old days of chaos. Following the invasion of Iraq, then there was this fake election thing that was going on for a little while. And they were like, oh yeah, elections, democracy, Iraq, yeah, because the people of Iraq understand democracy. Let's force democracy on them. And then the elections were rigged left, right and centre until eventually the Islamists took over. Not good. Not good. But in 2005, there was an election. And guess who decided to interfere? Guess who was sent by the Labour government, by Downing Street, to interfere in the Iraqi elections? Yes, Lord Wahid Alli. He was dispatched to Iraq by number 10, by the leadership of number 10 Downing Street, to meddle in the January elections. Blair's Downing Street pledged clandestine support to Iyad Alawi, the former member of Saddam's security services, who had earlier been chosen as interim prime minister by the coalition forces. It was a very chaotic period back then. Now, at the time, nobody knew who Wahid Alli was. He wasn't really a top Labour donor back then. He was just a mini donor and of course a member of the Labour Party, a politician and everything else. He was dispatched by Downing Street to go and sort things out. After Wahid Alli was installed in Alawi's office, he actually got a job in Iraq. There was a huge increase in advertising spending on his campaign. Alawi dominated the Iraqi media landscape from that point on, leading Al Jazeera to brand him an American puppet. In fact, he was a British puppet. Jack Fairweather, the author of A War of Choice, the British in Iraq, wrote that Wahid Alli and former Labour Party General Secretary Margaret MacDonnell, his partner for the mission, suggested that the classic new Labour ploys of polling data analysis and working with focus groups to coordinate campaign messaging, which were received with zero enthusiasm by Alawi's campaign team. The Iraqis didn't understand focus groups. The Iraqis didn't understand data analysis, but Tony Blair knew, Keir Starmer knows, Wahid Alli knows, so they decided to have their puppet to have that election. The sad reality is that the meddling from the Western globalists, in this case the British government, backfired massively up to a point where the Shias, backed by Iran, took control. And now Iraq is basically controlled partly by the Islamic Republic of Iran. The same Iraq that under Saddam Hussein's leadership invaded Iran in the 1980s. Oh, how times change. All because of Tony Blair and his puppets. But it gets worse. This Labour government are betraying Britain left, right and centre. Some of you might have already heard. The Chagos Islands have now been handed over to Mauritius. So, this was a decision that was made apparently within the last 9 days. A very instant decision. So we got these tiny islands, right? Across the world, of course, they're British overseas territories. Now, some people who are left-wing are saying, oh, we should leave all these islands. But forget about strategic decisions and the need for the obviously in terms of national security and international security. You got places like the Falklands and of course in this situation Chagos. These guys, democratic will matters. These people want to be part of the UK. Whether you like it or not. Yes, you could talk about the history. You could talk about centuries ago. Oh, why did we go there? The British Empire. Right now, the people who live there, the few people who live there, want to be part of the UK. What did this government do? They decided to hand it over to Mauritius, who are the puppets of the CCP in Beijing. So the Chinese Communist Party are taking over these islands to build their own radar systems and everything else and bases. And the Labour Party, 9 days ago, they were denying this. They were saying we're still in discussions, right? So let's look at Hansard. This is in the 9th of September. And of course, then 24th of September, the answer, which was about 9 days ago. Question. To ask His Majesty's government what assessments they have made of the military and security impact of negotiations between the UK and Mauritius Islands on the exercise of sovereignty over the British Indian Ocean territory, right? And then the response was that the UK and Mauritius have held 12 rounds of negotiations on the exercise of sovereignty over British Indian Ocean territory. While it is still too early to speculate on the timeline or conclusions, our priority remains to resolve this important issue. Okay? So 9 days ago, they didn't really know what they were doing. Now, the socialist government have decided to hand it over to Mauritius. Now, not only this is part of the Chinese Communist Party, they are the puppets. The media went around saying, well, the UK, we are doing a historic handover back to Mauritius. Back. It never belonged to them. For 200 years. Firstly, nobody lived there for ages. And then you had some, obviously, natives without being part of any country, right? For centuries and centuries. Then for 200 years, the French took over and put all the slaves on those islands. That was what the French were doing. The British went there, abolished the slavery, and helped them and said, okay, let's just help you be on your own, and we'll help you manage the islands. No links with Mauritius, right? Now the media are saying, well, we were giving it back to Mauritius. Back to what? That's a lie anyway. And the people want to be part of the UK. Now you're betraying their democratic will as well. And you're betraying our the British national security as well. James Cleverly, who is a candidate for Tory leadership election, said weak. Labour lied to get into office, said they'd be whiter than white, and said they wouldn't put up taxes, said they'd stand up to the EU, and said they would be patriotic, all lies. But then, if you actually think about who's saying this, James Cleverly used to be the Foreign Secretary until half an hour ago, under the previous government. James Cleverly was also the same Foreign Secretary who started these negotiations with Mauritius in the first place. Now he's claiming that, oh, well, David Lammy is just doing it out of nowhere. You started the negotiations. Let's look at the details in terms of Chagos Islands. Going back to the 3rd of November 2022, the Foreign Secretary at the time, James Cleverly, said that following the meeting between the then Prime Minister, my right honourable friend, and the member for South West Norfolk, Elizabeth Truss, that's Liz Truss, and Prime Minister, of course, then the UN General Secretary, the UK and Mauritius have decided to begin negotiations on the exercise of sovereignty over the British Indian Ocean Territory and the Chagos. And then you read the rest of it. The whole point of these negotiations was because of the dispute. The UK and Mauritius have agreed to engage in constructive negotiations with a view to arriving at an agreement by early next year, 2023. Now that was delayed, and when Labour got into office, with David Lammy as Foreign Secretary, civil servants basically brought in the document saying, so the previous Foreign Secretary started his negotiations. Would you like to finish it? And they said, what is the Chagos? What is Chagos? He didn't know. Clearly he didn't know. And they explained to him. And civil servants betrayed us because they just said, yeah, just hand it over. It doesn't really matter. Give it to the Chinese communists. And he said, okay. Because last time we did that with Hong Kong, turned out to be really well, right? And we did it again. And now the Chinese communists are loving it. They're taking advantage of this. But it makes sense because we have now also discovered that David Lammy, as Foreign Secretary, has a new policy. It's to get close to the Chinese communists. Now, the issue with this is that we've had so many examples to speculate until now. But David Lammy himself is now confirmed he actually does want to get close to the Chinese Communist Party. So, for example, look at what he said on the 7th of May this year at the Lowy Institute. The director's chair, David Lammy, on the UK's foreign policy, Europe, China, obviously AUKUS, and everything else. He said, this gets bad. We have an important trading relationship with China. Climate, there we go, climate, of course, requires cooperation. Health, Wuhan, requires cooperation. AI requires cooperation. And so it's important that we are engaged with China. We have been very concerned that the government seems to have given up entirely on engagement with China. Good. No one seems to have gone from our government to China. He's talking about the Tories, which is very, very bizarre. We are also concerned, by the way, in Hong Kong, we have a lot of nationals now from Hong Kong who have made the UK their home. There's very concerned about that, by the way. There are real issues for those nationals in terms of the aggression that they're facing overseas, right? So this was the same David Lammy who also said recently that, well, he promised to meet with the Chinese communists to accuse them of genocide. But he met with the Chinese communists and Xi Jinping's regime and completely forgot. He basically said, actually, no, I'm not going to talk about genocide. So the new policy, it was quite interesting because Rishi Sunak was accused of being quite close with China because of Jeremy Hunt as foreign secretary. But because they were under a lot of pressure, they didn't actually do it. They just stayed quiet. They didn't really condemn China much, but they didn't really get too close either. And then David Lammy and Keir Starmer, a few months ago before the election, they were very angry. They were saying, why are the Tory government not getting close to the Chinese communists? I wonder why. Because it's not a good idea. Because the last 2 times we did that, it backfired. In 1992, the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, came up with a genius idea to go and shake the hands of the Chinese communist leaders, thinking that he could tame them, thinking that he could make them more civilized, and introduce capitalism to China. So what the Chinese did, they copied and pasted an element of capitalism, not free market, no, corporatist, state corporatism, just like Mussolini in Italy, basically. And they copied and pasted everything that the West were doing, like America, and they started rigging the system and selling us cheap nonsense. And the only person who was calling it out at the time was Donald J. Trump, and everybody laughed at him. Everybody ignored him. Then in 2011, 2012, we did it again. David Cameron and George Osborne and Boris Johnson went all the way to Beijing, red carpet, communist red carpet, met with the Chinese communists, saying, yes, let's get the Britain and China to get closer. We're going to try again because Bill Clinton failed. We're going to make them civilized. That backfired because the Chinese communists decided to infiltrate our system. We allowed them to come in from our nuclear programs to our phone networks. Huawei got into the UK. CCTV equipment, all controlled by the Chinese communists, until recently when we had to remove all of them. Who did that? David Cameron, George Osborne, all these guys. Bill Clinton did the same in the 90s. And since then, we've had a number of dodgy characters getting close to China since the 90s. You had Anthony Fauci in America, in charge of public health, technically. Michel Barnier, who was the EU bureaucrat, but back in the day, he was a government minister inside the French government. He gave the green light to the Wuhan labs. We've had so many people in the West who are working closely with the Chinese communists, and that's why the Chinese Communist Party, China, are the founding, one of the early members of both BRICS, which is an Eastern globalist club, and also the World Economic Forum in Davos, which is a Western globalist club. The Chinese communists are playing all sides, and we continue to fall for it, which is fascinating. Until somebody says enough is enough, it's not really going to change anything. The whole approach is going to be the same, and the West will continue to go down. Let's get some reaction. Mike says, what genocide? What? Oh, no, it's a response to somebody else. I think people are talking to each other. Kevin Perry says, Is Lammy a little big Lammy over Abacus Abbott and Comrade Corbyn? David Lammy was used to be treated the same way that Diane Abbott used to be treated, like idiots. Now he's Foreign Secretary. It's bad. Right. What's going on with you guys? Someone in random comments. Truth says Tommy Robinson controlled opposition. Wake up, clans. Oh, we got the anti-Semites in the live chat. That's so cute, guys. So cute. Enjoy the live chat, ladies and gentlemen of the troll world. The more you watch it, the more you leave comments, the more it will help the algorithm. So keep doing it. Keep causing chaos in the live chat. It helps. What else? There is not much reaction in the live chat in regards to this story, apart from Vic saying CCP thumbs down. Everybody else is just talking about nonsense. I don't know what's going on. Blue Sapphire says, to sum this up, we are effed because of suicidal decisions made by the governments. The thing is, overall, all governments are terrible anyway. But I can now confirm that since the Acts of Union, this is the most dangerous government the United Kingdom has ever had. And it might be a subjective opinion, but prove me wrong. Genuinely prove me wrong. Give me an example of any previous government that the United Kingdom has had since the Acts of Union that's been more dangerous than this. On so many levels. Domestic policies, betraying the pensioners, not just that, but internationally speaking, getting close to the Chinese communists, chasing after, hunting down Benjamin Netanyahu, our ally, to arrest him, the arrest warrant against him, and obviously cutting ties with Israel, defending the Islamists, and the BBC going around saying that Hezbollah and the Islamic Republic of Iran are the rational side, it's the Jews who are crazy. I mean, all this is happening under this government, and on a daily basis, national security concerns are going up, more stabbings, more acid attacks, more terrorist attacks. We literally have the government defending the terrorists while chasing after patriots, British patriots, who are complaining about their country going down. If you complain about it, you go to jail. If you want to destroy the country, you'll be rewarded. And we got Islamic lords going around funding the government and the politicians, and we also have been given a story which I'm not supposed to talk about yet for legal reasons in regards to Keir Starmer and his family. Let's just say this story will eventually come out. This is very dodgy, allegedly, but we've been given some detailed information about, as Dan Wootton would phrase it, the shape of Keir Starmer's family. Now, you might say, well, people's family, well, what are we getting involved with that? You know, it's personal, it's not business. But when it gets linked with political corruption and political malice, it is our interest, it's in the national interest. Now, there is a story that we're not allowed to publish. The Telegraph and some other outlets are also aware. Eventually, it's going to be published, and this could be the downfall of Keir Starmer. Some disgusting stuff is coming out about him and what he's done, and of course, let's just say, without getting into details, Lord Wahid Ali and everything else has been going on with his penthouse, but we will wait for the actual reporting of that. It's things are not too well, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, there's a bit of a conflict in the live chat. I don't know what's going on. It's going very fast. Vinny says 672,000 subscribers. Yes, actually, yes, thank you. The world is waking up slowly but surely, ladies and gentlemen. Comedy Saxon says MI5 watching some dodgy seas. What? That's very out of context. Fair enough. Oh yeah, the anti-Semite is back. Truth Pagan. Maya creaming his pants at the prospects of a possible Western military conflict with Iran. No, I've been saying the West should stay out of it. Do not get involved with the Middle East. Do not get involved with the whole Israel thing or Iran thing. It's a bad idea. British forces, the US forces, stay out of it. It's not your business. Just try not to attack Israel, that will be good. Have their backing, back them, but do not send your troops to the Middle East. Let's see. Chagos Islands would gleefully throw him into the meat grinder. I don't think this idiot knows actually what he's talking about, because what he says is not what I support. So, but of course, the people who are brainwashed mostly by Marxism or Islamism, and that also includes some ethno-nationalists, not normal nationalists, ethno-nationalists. They want the people who somehow think that there's always been like one ethnicity in this country, considering it was literally Anglo-Saxons and the Vikings came. The issue with this is that they usually have deep psychological issues. So either their mum didn't raise them well, or their father betrayed them, or the overall personality of the family structure has not been good. They usually have had bad teachers and bad schooling. And since then, anything that happens in their private life, they usually want to blame it on somebody else. So in their personal life, in the relationships, they have fights, they have a lot of breakups, they fall out with friends. You know, sometimes they drink a lot, sometimes they'll go all the way the other way. They become so vegan-y, you know, got both sides. And they refuse to get therapy. And that is the biggest problem. It's easier to blame other people, including the Jews, for your problem, or the bankers, or the rich, ooh, scary, or capitalism, rather than actually get mental health services that you require. It will be good to get proper therapy, but it's easier to just blame the Jews for your problems. The same problems that we'll have. These are the people, if you look at them the wrong way on the train, they will start a fight with you. Anyway, so that's my psychological analysis of Truth Pagan. Anyway, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break. We're going to come back shortly with more updates for you guys. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.